Welcome to Designing and Analyzing fMRI Experiments. My name is Joe Devlin, and I'm going to be teaching the course this term. There's an awful lot of material to cover to become familiar and skilled at designing and analyzing your own fMRI experiments. My hope is that this course provides a solid foundation that'll get you set on the right path in your fMRI journey. As I'm sure you're aware, everything is going to be done online this year. And one of the main tools that we'll be using is UCL's Moodle package. There's a lot of information on our Moodle pages. So in addition to like electronic copies of the two textbooks, there's also the term schedule, all sorts of supplemental information. There's even some MRI-based entertainment if you're feeling bored at some point. But everything essential for the module will be provided on Moodle, with the exception of some of the data sets, which are actually too big to upload to Moodle. And what I'll do is I will make sure that there are links to those that are available on Moodle. My particular teaching philosophy is that theory is very useful and it's important to know it, but in the absence of actually having practical experience, it doesn't help that much, right? It's useful, but to actually make it real and to get you skilled at actually doing fMRI, you have to do fMRI. You have to learn by doing. So as a result, I'm going to try to make half of the course theoretical in terms of the lectures that I provide and the videos and such, and half very practical. That is to say that there'll be a weekly lab, and that'll focus on implementing the material that we've been learning in the theory in terms of practical steps. As a result, you're going to need to ensure that you have a computer that's actually capable of analyzing fMRI data, and we'll talk about that particularly in week 2's lab. Each week we're going to have a set of content that's delivered via a series of relatively short lectures provided online, and I'm going to release those about a week in advance so that they don't sort of become overwhelming. You don't have to go through, for instance, 10 weeks worth of lecture material all at once. Along with those videos, there's going to be a written weekly assignment. It is formative, so that is to say that you don't get marked for it, but I would highly recommend that everyone do it. It's going to be on the order of a 250-word written assignment once a week, and it'll make sure that you're really staying up and understanding the material and internalizing it as we go along. In addition, every week has a sort of hot questions button on Moodle. So that is to say, anytime you have any questions that come up during the lectures, if you could pop that onto the hot questions page, that would be very helpful. And people will then have the opportunity to vote up the questions that they also had. And what we'll do is we'll get to those in the interactive sessions that we run once a week. The second thing that we'll be doing is we'll be doing the practical material through labs. Every week there is a lab, and you can see on the schedule what's planned for the whole term. All of these will focus on practically implementing the information that you're acquiring through the lectures and the activities. So doing the labs is really essential to solidifying the information that you're taking in at this point. In addition, every Thursday afternoon between 1:30 and 3:30, we're going to have, actually it's 1 to 3, excuse me, we're going to have a live interactive session. These will be delivered online, and they'll begin with kind of an interactive quiz. And again, the quiz isn't marked. It's a chance for you to sort of see what you understand, what maybe was a little bit confusing, and hopefully clarify any of the points that you have not understood. The quizzes are intended to be sort of fun and helpful rather than stressful in this sense. From there, what I'll do is I'll pick the top questions from the hot questions list, the things that people have raised already as things that were unclear in the videos that need further explanation. And I'll go through that with you as a class. It's also a chance for you to ask any additional questions that come up either as a result of that or anything else that comes to mind in that live session. We'll then have a short break just because 2.5 hours is a long time to go straight. And then we'll go into the interactive lab session. So that content varies week to week, but as I said, this is kind of a key aspect of implementing the understandings that you're developing through the theory. In addition, on Friday afternoons between 2 and 3, I will have office hours, or in this case, office hour once a week. It'll be on Zoom, and what will happen is I'll just be on Zoom. I've put the link in Moodle for you already. Anyone is welcome to sort of open it up, come ask any questions that they may have. Obviously, if there are a lot of people, then there may be a bit of a queue. So if you have something that you specifically want to raise and expect that you will be there for office hours, please do email me in advance so that I know and can plan accordingly. But it's just basically a pop-in session for your benefit. Anything comes to mind. Okay, so in terms of the mark for the module, this is actually going to be entirely based on coursework. So there's no exam. And this is, again, consistent with this philosophy that I think the best way to learn is by doing. So I'm going to give 2 pieces of coursework, one relatively early in the term, one much later. The first of which is just simply designing your own fMRI experiment. And once we've gotten through week 3, you will have had all of the fundamental information that you need to design an experiment. And we'll take you through the process of not only designing it, but then presenting your experiment in what's called a project presentation, which is a very typical thing to expect whenever you're doing fMRI across a huge number of different centers. And I think it's in week 2's lab. We'll go through that. I'll take you through a typical project presentation so you know what to expect. These, by the way, will be done in groups. So almost no fMRI experiments are done by individuals. Normally there's too much information for any one person to sort of internalize it all effectively. So what you typically have are small groups who work on fMRI experiments together. So in order to stay real with this, that's exactly the way it's going to be done in this course. You will be randomly allocated to small groups, somewhere between 3 to 5 people, and you will design your experiment with your group. And then you will also do the second part, which is I will provide data sets from actual fMRI experiments. Everything's anonymized. And based on that, you're going to analyze those data and write it up in terms of a methods and results section as if you were writing it for a journal article. And again, as you can see, this is kind of what I mean by it being very practical. That is what you do with fMR. You design your experiments, you collect your data, you then analyze the data and write it up for publication. In this particular case, because we're stuck in this kind of online only scenario, you won't have the opportunity to actually collect the data this year. Instead, I'm going to provide some data sets that you'll use for your project. For what it's worth, the design of the fMRI experiment and the presentation, that'll be worth about 10% of your final grade. Not about, it's worth 10% of your final mark. Whereas 90% is down to the analysis of the fMRI data set and the write-up. The main reason for that is because you won't get to actually collect these data. The design is almost entirely a theoretical exercise at this point, whereas the practical aspects are really coming to grips with real-life data in all of its messy glory and turning that into a proper sort of scientific study. So that will be 100% of your mark altogether, obviously 10 and 90. Right? Okay, so I should just say that in this course, we are going to cover an awful lot of material, and it comes from a whole variety of disciplines, right? I mean, you have physics, physiology, psychology, anatomy. We have, obviously, neuroscience, but that's probably super obvious. But there's computing, there's engineering, there's signal processing, there's mathematics. There's a whole range of topics, which is why it's very, very rare for any one person to sort of incorporate all of the information that they actually need. It also means that 10 weeks is a very short period of time to sort of acquire everything that you need. In realistic terms, I don't think that that's possible. In my experience, if you are actually hands-on working on an fMRI project, it takes about a year from when you start to when you're at a level that's you're basically competent to design and analyze your own experiments at that point. That is not intended to be discouraging. It just reflects the sort of scope of the problem that we all face. So the purpose of this module is to sort of really kickstart that process, give you the vast majority of that essential information that you can get in 10 weeks in a very structured form that builds on it on a week-to-week basis. And really hope that that provides a really solid foundation, a good beginning to your fMRI journey. That does mean that there's tons of relevant information about fMRI that I won't be able to get to in this module, but that's okay. That just means that you're off to a good start, and there's lots of exciting areas that still can be explored. I should add that I started doing fMRI in 1998, and 20 some years on, I'm still learning, right? It's been a very fun process, and one of the things that's really exciting about this method is the fact that there is so much to master, and it's being developed as we progress ourselves. So it's a very dynamic area. It's an exciting field, and I hope to share some of my enthusiasm for it with you this term.